Hello students and welcome back to another lore video of Warmachine and the Iron Kingdoms. I am Professor Clocksworth and I will be taking over from Professor Caster in this little experiment of reading the longer form history. Today we will be reading over the history archives of the Farrows and the Thornfall Alliance. For those that do not or have not seen these creatures, they are porcine or pig-like humanoids who until recently have scraped out existence on the outskirts of most societies, but we will get into that. Please sit back, enjoy, and if you could or enjoy my reading, please leave a comment and like below. And if you want more of my in-depth reading, please subscribe. Every one of our students is valued more than you realize. Also, a big thank you to Steamforged Games for letting us continue our studies into the lore of the Iron Kingdoms. And if you want to support the continuation of the Warmachine storyline, please check out their website as well. Without further ado, let's begin. Farrow of Western Imoran. Conquest by Bloody Cleaver. Tribes of Farrow have lived on the barren fringes of Western Imoran for centuries. The species has often been overlooked by humanity, except when Farrow have led raids on remote townships or ambushes on trade caravans. They are a rugged and tribal people accustomed to doing what they must to survive. While their technologies are crude by human standards, Farrow are an ingenious race that has proven remarkably adaptable. In recent years, Farrow have offered services for hire in the escalating battles and wars among the greater powers around them. Mercenary labor has brought a wealth of battlefield experience and opportunities for scavenging and plunder. Whether they continue to be content fighting at the bidding of others or shape their own destiny will depend on the successes of their increasingly capable leaders. Fighting for scraps. The Farrow have a reputation as scavengers, bandits, and ruthless opportunists, a reputation they both deserve and embrace. Farrow consider survival the foremost imperative and have no stigma against stealing anything not nailed down. The next highest priority in a Farrow's life is to improve his standing compared to that of his peers, preferably dominating them to do his bidding. Farrow's social interactions involve bullying one's inferiors while seeking favor and avoiding the wrath of one's masters. Those who are mighty and clever prosper, while the weak and foolish are fair game for abuse. In a never-ending cycle of challenges and retaliations, each Farrow rises or falls in the loose hierarchy. It is not uncommon for a Farrow to rise from beggar to chief and then be murdered as another aspires to replace him. Farrow are most numerous in the otherwise unclaimed Badlands of Signar and along the fringes of the Bloodstone Marches. Several mountain ranges and craggy hill regions shelter Farrow villages, including the Dragonspine Peaks, certain sections of the Wormwall, and Caerley's Craig. The Thornwood has been home to Farrow villages over the decades, although the present climate makes life difficult there. Migrations have pushed them north out of the warmer and drier regions into unpopulated areas of both Ord and Cador. They have settled as far north as the southern hills of Rule, but the dwarven clans watching that border periodically drive them away. Even their most remote communities along the Bloodstone Marches have endured competition from the Scorn army of the Western Reaches. Despite these threats, Farrow are at greater daily risk from the predations of other Farrow than outsiders. A Farrow's worst enemies are neighbors envious of his belongings or status. Farrow become extremely possessive of claimed booty, whether it was won in battle, stolen, or pieced together from salvage. Murder between Farrow over coveted items is common, particularly in a tribe with a weak chief who cannot enforce order. For Farrow tribes to survive, members must fulfill a number of required but undesirable roles, including menial labor. The most detestable work is delegated to those at the bottom of their society, who comply out of fear. The most aggressive and skilled warriors and hunters seize positions at the top of the hierarchy, with a single warlike chief assuming ultimate dominance over the others. Any Farrow capable of regularly acquiring food or other resources for the village gains respect, while those who must be supported by others are objects of scorn and shame. Those who build and craft can also earn prestige to a lesser degree and may be able to barter these services for food or other goods. Of the Farrow skilled at crafting, those who can build quality weapons are the most valued within a tribe. Farrow prefer to gather their food and rarely farm, having little patience for tending crops, although there have been exceptions where a tribe has learned to distill alcoholic spirits either for their own use or for barter. Many Farrow tribes are semi-nomadic, following easy game and bountiful food reserves where and when possible. Farrow warriors are not equally skilled, disciplined, or trained. In many cases, those identifying themselves as warriors spend more of their time stealing and scavenging than fighting. In their language, there is no distinction between the terms warrior and brigand, as both are considered equally respectable occupations. Warriors are equipped to defend what they have claimed and naturally rise to positions of leadership over the less fit. Farrow take a pragmatic approach to both food and salvage. Just as they will use or devour every last part of hunted game, they will strip down and seize anything left on a battlefield. Arrangements are often made between Farrow warriors and craftsmen, with warriors bringing scavenged materials to those capable of fabricating weapons. Farrow have proven adept at reproducing approximations of the weapons and tools of other races. Farrow gunsmiths can hand-forge solid and reliable pig iron rifles from even cheap scavenged metal and have learned how to repair or rebuild other assets like cannons and steam engines, marking territory. Farrow villages utilize impermanent structures of wood, clay, mud-covered straw, and scavenged sheets of metal hammered together in ramshackle fashion. When these structures are destroyed by enemies or natural disaster, the Farrow simply rebuild them. Despite this, the honor of a Farrow chief is reliant on his strength to defend his territorial borders. Keeping intruders away is, in fact, the first and foremost duty of a chief, as few things enrage Farrow more than violations of their territory. When confronted by an encroaching foe, a tribal chief must make the difficult decision whether to flee or dig in and fight. Farrow determined to protect their lands prove surpassingly tenacious. Warriors armed with improvised or raided weapons will hunker amid entrenched positions and defend them to the death. Perimeters will be fortified with sharpened spikes, deep pits, and a variety of natural snares and traps. Both Trollkin creels and isolated human outposts have discovered the Farrow possess boar-like stubbornness. All adult Farrow are combat-ready, with only the very young and pregnant females kept from the fray. Faced with overwhelming odds, a chief may opt to retreat. One who gives the order to flee even before a clearly superior force will suffer the consequences, however, enduring shame and considerable loss of clout among his warriors. This is often sufficient to force an immediate change in leadership, even if the decision to flee was necessary for survival. When his leadership is threatened directly, a chief must defend it with his life. Those who falter are either killed outright or else driven from their tribe. The strongest chiefs are the ones most likely to seek additional profit by bartering their fighting skills to outsiders for a portion of the spoils of battle. Often, these arrangements allow a tribe to experience riches well beyond what they could seize through localized plunder. They will accept a wide variety of payment for their services, preferring weapons but also welcoming food stores, raw materials, and access to better lands, mystical traditions. Farrow do not generally enjoy long lives, but exceptions exist among a tribe's mystics, the most important of which are the shamans and the bone grinders. Farrow are rarely preoccupied with matters of faith except when reminded of their mortality. Most practice a variant of Dunian worship, with short and simple rites. Funerals, births, and certain other occasions are occasions for shared prayer. They look to their shamans in times of battle to invoke blessings on the warriors. The most capable battle shamans rise to positions of leadership and sometimes become chiefs. Bone grinders embody a significant mystical tradition that incorporates the most pragmatic aspects of Farrow life. Their ability to draw upon the innate power of slain beasts goes hand in hand with their belief that no part of an animal should go to waste. Even as meat is carved away to be eaten or smoked and stored, the grinders pull forth spiritual power left in the bones as a remnant of the once living beast. Grinders can bolster the performance of warriors and chiefs with a loose approximation of alchemy that lets them create potent totems or unguents. Off the battlefield, their mixtures can be used to speed healing after injury or relieve other bodily ailments. Most chiefs also value these individuals for their advice and wisdom. Under a chief's protection, mystics are more likely to live longer than those Farrow of other walks of life, and thus they can pass their practices down to the next generation. Some chiefs consider mystics meddlesome and cowardly, but where they are valued by the majority of a village's inhabitants, it is necessary to afford them a modicum of respect. The Thornfall Alliance. For most of their existence, the scattered and isolated Farrow tribes existed in a state of perpetual infighting. This changed only with the rise of a giant among them. A Farrow of such ambition, drive, and thirst for conquest, he would change the very nature of his species. That Farrow would become known as Lord Carver, the bringer of most massive destruction. Emerging from the dry hills northeast of the Black River near the Marchfells, Lord Carver immediately gained prominence by crushing every rival to appear before him, shaming chief after chief with displays of power. In his hand, his cleaver became a blood-drenched symbol of might, and he was escorted by hulking porcine beasts he sent charging across the battlefield to annihilate his foes. Lord Carver's inexorable rise to power did not happen overnight. After brutally subjugating several nearby tribes, he spent some time bartering his strength to nearby human military outposts and others who offered adequate pay. Lord Carver's contact with humanity, while profitable, left him forever disdainful of that species, which treated him with contemptible disrespect. Carver was viewed as any other Farrow warlord despite his obvious supremacy. He determined he would unite his people in a war of conquest to prove his ultimate superiority. Wherever Lord Carver marched, the Farrow fell into line and obeyed him. But as soon as he moved on, they descended into chaos. No one dared defy him openly, yet he lacked the organization and structure to maintain the momentum of his efforts. In battle, he found himself hindered by the limited capabilities of his lazy subordinates. As much as Lord Carver hates to admit it, the arrival of Dr. Arcadius enabled his dreams of larger conquest to become a reality. Ordinarily, Lord Carver might have immediately dismissed the eccentric arcanist, but Arcadius had planned for the meeting with a demonstration of his unique genius. Before Lord Carver could even demand Arcadius explain himself, the Doctor revealed his warhogs, tremendous hybrids of boar flesh and steam-powered weaponry picked from the battlefields of Western Imoran. Lord Carver immediately discerned the possibilities with such weapons at his disposal, and soon the Doctor was ensconced within the warlord's inner circle as chief advisor. Relations between these two leaders is tense, but they've formed the core of a new Farrow alliance, possessed of both the raw sinew and the cunning to unite the tribes. Lord Carver's army summoned the scattered chieftains to meet with him in the Thornwood Forest, at the site of an old battleground called Thornfall. The beleaguered Farrow of the Thornwood had suffered considerably at the hands of Tharn, Crix, Signar, and Cador, all of which had been battling across their territories. Lord Carver marched among them and seized control, intimidating the lesser chiefs into submission. Those few who resisted him were set upon by their own ambitious subordinates, each of whom subsequently bent knee to Lord Carver. This became the Thornfall Alliance, which Lord Carver intends to use in order to eventually stand as an equal against the human kingdoms, and then to conquer and subjugate them. The great warlord has many feast halls where he assembles the Farrow after victories and considers every village of his people his home. Yet his largest and greatest hall still lies in the hills of the Bloodstone Marches, just outside the region claimed by the Scorn Empire. Lord Carver does not rest long here, but travels often to ensure the loyalty of those bound by pact into his alliance, and to replace the fallen with fresh warriors from scattered villages. Lord Carver stands at the fore of his horde, but he is supported by countless tribal chiefs, each of whom considers himself the ruler of a petty fiefdom. These various chiefs defer to Dr. Arcadius, who has special stature among the alliance, even though many Farrow are discomforted by his peculiar mannerisms, speech, and inexplicable arcane science. Even the greatest war chiefs are terrified of Arcadius, for they know his cunning is far beyond theirs. He has demonstrated the ability to shape Farrow flesh as he wishes, and many who enter his laboratories emerge as something entirely other than what they once were, if they emerge at all. The chiefs obey Lord Carver to preserve their lives, but obedience to Arcadius is rooted in more insidious fears. There is an ever-shifting order among the chiefs, as those deemed most valued by Carver command the respect of the rest and can pass down orders. Yet by and large, the alliance's gathered warriors fight effectively in battle, each group looking to its own interests. Lord Carver is continually seeking ways to bring greater organization and tactical expertise to his army, including the recent adoption of banners to identify coherent tribal groups. He has also experimented with utilizing signals like whistles and flags to coordinate actions, although this has met with limited success, and that will be our reading of the archives today. If you enjoyed this, please hit that like button, comment, let me know your thoughts, and if you could hit that subscribe for more lore like this and all the other factions of Warmachine and the Iron Kingdoms. Thank you for attending class today, and another thank you to Steamforged Games. And as Professor Caster always says, class dismissed.